Hey everybody, it's time for another entry in the series designed to piss off tools and posers. Hey assholes. Today I want to talk about a subject near and dear to me. Video games. I've played more than my fair share of video games. At the age of 4, when I barely had the motor control or hand-eye coordination to use a controller, I played Pac-Man for the first time. And after that came other classic arcade games such as Galaga, Galaxian, Space Invaders, and Atari 2600 games such as Breakout, Berserk, Frogger, and Earthworld. At the age of 9, I got the NES for my birthday, and I haven't really looked back from there. So basically, I'm what you'd call an old-school gamer. But today, I'm going to bitch about a disease infecting many old-school gamers. That's right, I'm lashing out at my own kind this time, and I hope it snaps some people out of it. Either that, or at least they shut the fuck up for at least a day or two. So here we go. Hey assholes. The next person to claim that video games suck now, and that games, the gaming industry, and everything relating to video games was unilaterally superior back in the old days, is going to get a free shoe. That's because I'm going to launch my foot so far up their ass that the shoe will become a lost cause, impossible to retrieve, even with the jaws of life. The only way that shoe will ever see the light of day is after major surgery. And yeah, let me get it out of the way and say that the opposite holds true. The people who think that the only games worth playing are on the newest system are also tools. These are the fecal blossoms that pick out the console with the best specs, and then a few years later in the next generation claim that they can't play any of those games that they used to like because they have terrible graphics. But the thing is, pretty much everyone ignores those assholes, mostly because they're almost all like the idiot at GameStop who, when I asked about Dragon Quest VI, went looking for Dragon Age 6. And yeah, I know that game doesn't even exist, but the punchline is that he didn't know that. But what aggravates me is the older gamers that do nothing but bitch about new games. One important factor here is that the same people claiming that video games suck now tell you in the same breath about how they only play the classics, not bothering to play the games that they put down, and they seem to think that the entire games industry today is made up of nothing but frat boy games like Halo, Madden, and Call of Duty. Let me say something as plainly as I can. I'm an old school gamer who has been around since the Atari days, and I'm also not an idiot, so I have some perspective here. I'm not going to say that games today are unilaterally weaker than the so-called classic days, nor will I say that they are unilaterally stronger. Both of those viewpoints are retarded, and the people who think those ways should take a ball-peen hammer to their balls and their peen. And for the chicks, I don't know, punch yourself in the boob or something. The fact is, quality-wise, the game industry is basically in the same place as it used to be, but a lot of people look at the past with rose-tinted glasses. Of course, we all know that this is the dreaded nostalgia rearing its ugly head. For those of you who think nostalgia just means looking back fondly on stuff that you used to enjoy in the past, let me point you to the actual definition of the word as taken from Merriam-Webster. A wistful or excessively sentimental yearning for return to or of some past period of irrecoverable condition. I'd like to put emphasis on one particular portion, excessively sentimental, as in sentimental to the point of excess. I experience this all the time when I do a commentary video on some piece of shit game from the past, usually crappy license games. I'll get comments telling me how they had the game as a child and they loved it. Now, I'm not talking about a game that's considered great by many, but that I just don't like for some arbitrary reason. I'm talking about games that have little to no redeeming value, like The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror on Game Boy Color. So, why do people have nostalgia for shit games? Because when you were a kid, you relied on other people to buy games for you, and even when you did buy your own games, you relied on gut instinct as to whether or not a game was good. There was no game rankings or Metacritic to tell you what games were getting great reviews. Magazines like Nintendo Power gave glowing reviews to mediocre games because their job is to sell you on buying them. Magazines like GamePro gave good reviews to games whose developers took out ad space in their magazine. So you were flying blind. So you make yourself play the crap game you got from your aunt because it's either that or replay your old ones for the millionth time. Or you play a shitty game that you bought with your own hard-earned money because you're determined to get your money's worth. Or maybe you're one of those people that just has to beat every single game that they own. But either way, it leads to a gaming version of Stockholm Syndrome, where you start to identify with the shitty game and even convince yourself that you're having fun. Everybody's guilty of this, even me. I remember playing Deadly Towers for the NES quite a lot over one weekend rental. And I remember this as a normal memory, not a traumatic experience that had to be unlocked through hypnotherapy. Looking back, I would have better spent my time putting Deadly Towers aside, saying, oh well, and playing Final Fantasy again. Another way that nostalgia makes things worse is people using it as a tool for selective memory. Basically, they choose only to remember the good parts of the past. Or I guess some people got lucky and only experienced the good parts, but let me tell you something. It wasn't all chocolate chip cookies and hand jobs. Look at the NES, for example. It's easy to see it as a system just brimming with classic games. But for every game like Super Mario Bros. 3, there were 20 games like Fist of the North Star. For every timeless classic like The Legend of Zelda, there are 20 shovelware titles like Where's Waldo. And for every Nintendo, Capcom, or Konami, there were probably 5 companies like LJN, Ocean, and Wisdom Tree. Now, of course there's plenty of shitty games today, from failed legacy games like the 2006 Sonic the Hedgehog and Bomberman Act Zero, to shovelware crap like Pets, Horses, and Carnival games, to licensed crap like M&M Kart Racing and stealth games about Burger King. The thing is, everybody knows these games are bad. We have Metacritic, Game Rankings, GameFAQs, IGN, and a billion other websites out there that either post reviews or aggregate scores and let us know where the turds are, lest we step on them. When you were a kid, maybe you bought Friday the 13th for the NES because you thought it sounded like an awesome idea, and then you were stuck with it. You can't be blamed. That's literally why licensed games exist, and also paradoxically why they suck. They exist because it's an easy sell, and they suck for the same reason. Why put effort into making a decent game when it will sell just as much if you rush it? But now, if you don't know not to buy Deal or No Deal, then, well, you're exactly in the demographic for it, an idiot who has no eye for quality and buys it based on the license alone. That being said, I often find myself wondering how people could say that games unilaterally suck now when there are so many great games out there, especially considering that there are actually good licensed games out there now. I want to use 2 examples here. The first is Transformers. It used to be that if a game was based on Transformers, it sucked golf balls through crazy straws. From the old Famicom piece of shit to the crappy, boring Revenge of the Fallen game, they were all terrible. But recently, I've been playing Transformers War for Cybertron on Xbox 360, and, well, it's great. It's such an easy license to make a game out of, too. Just have robots fucking each other up. That's all we want. We want to play as a variety of robots who fuck up a variety of other robots. Instead, we've gotten everything from bland side-scrollers where you die in one hit, to strings of escort missions and timed driving stages. And then War for Cybertron came out and let you fuck up robots. It's all we ever wanted, and it was certainly possible on older systems, so why did it take so long? Another example is Batman Arkham Asylum, which I've recently finished. I enjoyed the game immensely, and probably more so because good Batman games are rare as fuck. Yeah, the first Batman game on the NES was good, but you could have taken out Batman and put in any other character and it would have been the same game. Arkham Asylum not only used the license, but celebrated it. And what's interesting is that it's the reason I'm doing this video, because I was reading an article about the sequel, Batman Arkham City. I made the mistake of reading the comments on the article. The article claimed that a bare-bones speed run through the game, ignoring any exploration or side quests, would take about 8 hours. And this is based on the fact that the development team can run through the game in 8 hours. Cue bitching about how it's yet another short game, and how all games are short, sucky pieces of shit nowadays, and a bunch of ill-advised yearning for the good old days when games took 20 to 60 hours to complete. I kid you not, that is a direct quote. People claiming games are too short now pisses me off even more than people claiming they all suck now, because not only is it stupid, but it's so untrue that it's actually the opposite of truth. Games, generally speaking, are much longer now. Firstly, for the idiot who posted, "Remember when games took 20 to 60 hours to complete?" Yeah, I do. They're called RPGs. Batman Arkham City is an action-adventure game. How many fucking action-adventure games do you know that take 20 to 60 hours to beat? Not to mention that 8 hours is a speed run being done by the development team who know exactly how to get through it quickly and ignoring all the exploration and side quests that are what made the first game fun to begin with. The only people who are going to beat it in 8 hours are the people who are trying to, and probably only after spending many, many hours playing it to get good enough to pull that off, not to mention beating it at least once to know how to progress through the game. So yeah, suddenly it doesn't sound so short, does it? Hell, what action game do you know that takes 8 hours to beat? I remember people bitching about New Super Mario Bros. On the DS being short. Yeah, that's right, New Super Mario Bros. Short. The game with the same damn amount of levels and significantly less warps than Super Mario Bros. On the NES. Are you out of your damn mind? How long does it take to beat Super Mario Bros.? 20 minutes at the most? My only explanation to this is that these people just have no perspective. They remember playing games like, say, Mario and Zelda for a long, long time before beating them. Now, when they play through a game like New Super Mario Bros., they already know how to play through the game, and they've had years of practice at the many Mario games, and they blast through it. Games didn't get shorter or easier, you just got better at them. And then, of course, there's games like Zelda, where you spent weeks searching for items, dungeons, and such. These days, games do tend to hold your hand a lot more, and not just dump you in a world and say, there, fucking figure it out. The reason behind this makes a lot more sense than you'd think. It may not be as much of a challenge, but it's more fun to progress through the game at a pace faster than a snail fighting through molasses than it is to bomb every single rock wall for hours hoping to find a hidden cave. It also makes sense from a business standpoint, as the sooner you beat a game, the more likely you are to buy another game. So you get to play through the story without getting stuck for days on end because you don't know what to do, and you get to play more games. And this is a bad thing? Man, fuck you then. More games for me to play.